Hey Ronnie, I hope your weekend went well. I saw on the syllabus too that you were able to complete some of the works on there, so thanks for doing that. I'll go ahead and take a look at them in more detail later and provide any comments or feedback if there's anything that needs to be said. And I was thinking that maybe from now on, what I might do to make it easier for you is I might include this week's assignments as under the title of July 11th to July 15th. And that way it's clear that they're not necessarily due the day after if you don't get the day to get around to it. So you have an entire week to complete any of the tasks that are listed in yellow there, and you can just highlight them in blue for me to see. So yeah. So this is going to be a preview of chapter 9 next of Dorian Gray. This will be uploading soon for you. So you can work on it either today or tomorrow whenever you get the chance. So in this chapter, you're now going to see Basil make an appearance. We've already seen how Henry was a messenger for Dorian about the news of Sybil's death, and we're going to see how Dorian shares what has become of him after this has happened. You're going to see how Dorian actually reacts in this chapter to it, and some questions to think about that I'll also be listing for you to answer when you get the time after reading the chapter is, one, what does Dorian seem to, or who does Dorian seem to be shaped by or influenced by most? Is it Lord Henry or is it Basil in this case? Which I think is quite interesting because Lord Henry definitely seems to be like if you're familiar with the iceberg phenomenon in psychology, there's something called the id, the ego, and the superego. And it's basically your streams of consciousness that influence your moral compass. So the id, for example, is more of a pleasure-seeking device. So Lord Henry seems to be the id for Dorian's moral compass, whereas Basil seems to be the superego, or the kind of like the angel on your shoulder, whereas the other guy's the devil on your shoulder, if you've seen that in pop culture. The second question is, how might he also be shaped by his own painting? So it's kind of interesting because we already now see finally how the portrait is starting to portray Dorian's flaws, or his sins, I guess. And the next one is, what does he want to have to remember Sybil by? So there's going to be something that he wants to remember Sybil by, and you need to understand the significance of that because it says something about how he still views her. If you remember, in my previous discussion on this, it seems like he doesn't really view her as like a real person in a way. He views her as kind of like this actress who can fulfill several different roles, and so it's almost like he never really was in love with the real Sybil at all. So what he ends up wanting to remember her by is also kind of significant to that. Something that I think you're going to find really interesting about this chapter, at least it was for me, is there is an instance in which for the first time we really see homosexual romantic feelings being out in the open. Like it's very clearly stated in this chapter, which I found really interesting because when I read this book for the first time, I was actually quite surprised that a Victorian man was able to publish this, because Oscar Wilde actually had to rewrite this because Victorian society did not accept his first edition. So it was actually rewritten a second time, and this was still included in there. So my question in regards to this is going to be, how do you think the Victorians received this when they stumbled upon this chapter? So those are all the questions for now. So I hope that helps with kind of navigating as you read this chapter. I think it's a good one. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you in the next video.